And I see reactions are enabled too. Okay, perfect.
There's Giant coming in now. Hi, Giant.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, good afternoon.
Oh.
So Maria, we typically give it till 3 minutes past the hour before we get started, but we do like to inform the attendees that the session will be recorded and made available on the NurseHack4Health website.
Perfect. Yes, I'll just present my slide, start presenting if that's okay, and we can wait for 2 more minutes.
Awesome.
Maria, I'm going to introduce you and Giant, and then I'll probably go off camera while you're presenting just for bandwidth issues here.
Sure, thanks.
Nico, we got to get you the music.
Yes.
We got to
Yes,
connect
please.
you. We have somebody who does the music really well, because then people don't think they're like joining having headset
A silent
issues.
meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It's Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. How are we doing?
Hey, Daryl.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
How are
fine.
you? All right, Kathleen, Maria, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nico. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen McGrow. I'm the CNIO for Microsoft. Welcome to the NurseHack4Health Pitchathon. Take it apart, fix it, build it better. Today's session is on AI prompting and some information to get you ready for your projects as you're working on your solutions. I'd like to introduce Maria Kurian, who is a Microsoft Cloud Solution Architect, Giant Gupta, who's the director of our solution architects, and Dao Ro, who is one of our engineering applications specialists. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Maria. Thank you, everyone, so much for your attention. This call will be is being recorded so that you're aware, and it will be available on the website for future use. Go ahead, Maria.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathleen. Hello, everybody, and nice to know people across the country attending today. So I'm Maria Kurian, Principal Cloud Solution Architect from Microsoft. I'm based out of Sacramento, California, and Giant's my manager, so he's going to go first in talking about what we're going to cover in the next 1 hour. So over to you, Giant.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, everyone. My name is Giant Gupta. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. metro area. Nice to see people joining from all over the place. And today's session, we'll be covering about the prompting, the art of prompting, and we'll be running some use cases and demos. So let's get this party started. So Maria will be moving the screen so that make it easier. So first thing first, I hope at this point people are familiar with Copilot, and one of the first things we have to do with Copilot is to locate where it is. So in order to locate Copilot, there are several places you can go and find it. You can download the app if you are on mobile, or you can go to m365copilot.com. My favorite is this microsoft365.com/chat. It gives me whatever Copilot access I can. So different ways to get access to your favorite method to reach this super intelligent friend of yours who we have introduced, and we are going to talk about how are we interacting with our friend. So let's go ahead. So next slide, Maria. All right. So out of prompting. So if we, first of all, when we think about prompting, it's again, I'm introducing this new friend. Well, it's not new anymore. People, this genie is out of the bottle. So everyone knows who that genie is. So imagine that you have this Copilot genie. There is a person who has all the information the web can provide, and it knows all the tips and tricks. It has all linguistic superpowers, and it has all the creative heads. So this friend is really a good source of knowledge. Now, how do we interact with this friend? How do we get access to all the knowledge which this person has and use it for our own purpose so that we can make our daily life, our daily job, more productive and more efficient? So let's look at some of those methods. Uh, Now, prompting is just about talking to a person. It's just imagine that you have this genie and you are talking to it. What do you want to get out of it? Now, every time I'm talking to a person and think of it that, hey, I have limited time. I'm so busy with my daily work that there's only so much I can do. And now I want to utilize this friend of mine. So I need to have a goal. What am I talking to this person about? What's the context? Hey, I want to know, let's start with something very basic. I want to know the name of the medication which my doctor prescribed. So the name of the medication is my goal. The context is that, hey, I visited a doctor's clinic, this was my condition, the source. Now, the source, if you provide the source that, hey, this medication is from a certain category of medicines, or if you don't even know the source, then the whole internet becomes its source, right? And then the expectations. Now, this is where you make your prompt from good to even better, because you can get the name of the medication and what it does, but what if I want to have this information in a certain way? I want a list, I want this information to be produced in a table format so that I can compare what this medication does versus other medications. So the expectation is like how I'm asking my friend to present this information. And even if you don't use this, it will use its best judgment and produce the information. But by providing that expectation that, hey, I'm expecting a table, I'm expecting a bullet list, I'm expecting a short summary, that is where, we really make this friend work for us. So next slide. All right, let's look at another example. Here we are specifically highlighting the 4 different boards which we just discussed. Generate a 3 to 5 bullet points. That's a goal. I want information in 3 to 5 bullet point. Context. The context is that I'm preparing to meet a leader. I can specify the leader. Hey, I can say I'm prepared for a meeting with the nurse leader of XYZ organization, or it could be a nurse CNIO of this organization. So you're giving it more information. And then what's the other part of the context? It is that I'm discussing with that person about quietness at night campaign. So this is the context. I'm meeting with the nurse leader and I want to discuss the quietness at night. And then the source is I want to focus on latest findings since June. So you see how specific I was. It was I want to focus on the findings since June of 2026 or 2025, for example. And then expectations. Please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. Now, this is that really amazing part where I can really tell my friend how to present this information to me. And when we do these things, we eventually end up with very quickly we end up with an output which we can use to improve our day-to-day work. Going to the next slide. And just, sorry, let's move to the next one. So how to write an effective prompt? Now, all the information which we just shared, but that is great to know. But of course, when you're writing the prompt, you probably won't remember that I have to write a goal, a context, a source, and expectations. Of course, if you remember all the time, nothing like it. But if you are anywhere like me, I easily forget. But if I'm using it again and again, and if I'm being clear, if I'm following these do's and don'ts, and again, you don't have to remember these do's and don'ts. What we have to do is to interact more with our friend, and that's where we start to see the benefits. So be clear and specific, keeping it conversational, and that's the easiest part. So even if I don't remember the goal, context, and other things, if I can just start with like, hey, I'm looking to find this information about this drug discovery, you get some response. I only want certain information from January of this year. So just think about this again, genie friend who I'm having conversation with. So when you think about from the conversation point of view, it removes all the that hey, you have to be very specific. Just think of it that here's a friend who doesn't judge you, who never thinks like, hey, why are you asking a dumb question or a super intelligent question? It is totally impartial. So just keeping it conversational makes it really easy. Giving examples, asking for feedback. I mean, these are some of the things which you can interact with. Writing legibly. Again, if we ask a clear question, again, think of a person. If I have an assistant, if I'm very clear in my pursuit, in my ask, I will get a better response. Always check for accuracy. End of the day, this friend of ours is not human, so we need to make sure that there are citations. We look at the citations and we determine that hey, this information is accurate enough. I can use it. Provide details. The more details we provide, the better information we get. And be polite. Hey, we are human, right? So we can be polite on our side so that we always make this interaction very cordial. And of course, some of the don'ts, because we want to get information fast. If you use those 4 modes, it will be fastest. But even if you don't remember, by not being vague, by following these do's, we can get this information soon enough. I've always checked for unethical content. Using slang or jargon may limit some of the responses or may give some conflicting responses. And the best practice is that if you are done discussing with Copilot, you can start a new Copilot chat. So that way it doesn't get conflicted with the information provided enough. And you can start as many Copilot chat as you want. You can keep on conversation for as long as you want. So these are some of the do's and don'ts we want to discuss before we start talking about using these Copilot prompts in real time. And from here, our friend Maria will take over with additional best practices and lead with the promptathon.
Sure. Thank you, Giant. Yes. So today's session is going to be very hands-on. So I think Giant set the tone with, what us AI prompting. And one thing I do want to call out, the concepts that we are going to cover or we covered right now is applicable across all AI tools. So if you've been using AI tools in general, these are great principles that you can follow. And Sheila, I will be sharing this session slide decks with Nico, so I don't know how it's going to be accessible, so those should be available to you. But to start with, the reason we are using Copilot for the session today is to make it a secure space for you to interact with AI. I think that's the key differentiator in this case, because the type of work that this group does is very critical. Human lives that you work with, you handle a lot of PII data. So we want to make sure you have a secure experience when you're using AI technology. And that's kind of why we want you guys to use the M365 Copilot or Copilot chat for that matter. And like I said, this session is going to be interactive, and I'm a sucker for the raise your hand and reactions. So maybe as a quick test, I did share a link on top. I'll just put it again in here. Can everybody, go in there and like maybe a quick reaction if you're able to access that link? I put that in again. Anybody? Okay. I see reactions coming in. Great. Awesome. So you are in the right place. So thank you, team. So I see most folks are coming in. So yeah. Okay. Yes. I will just quickly share my screen, and I want to make sure everybody sees this before I go in with the rest of the best practices around prompting. Like I said, it's going to be a hands-on session, so I want to make sure everybody has access to it because you guys are going to create prompts and share some of the prompts that you will be working on today. So it should bring you to a UI similar to this. Here, I am logged in as Eka. Eka here is a nurse leader. And if you've logged in with your credentials, that is your organization's credentials, you probably see a green shield up on top. Anybody seeing that green shield? Let me just, maybe again, like I said, sucker for reactions. So I want to make sure if anybody seeing this green shield up there. Okay, awesome, great. So good to know that. So folks have been at the right space. If anybody is struggling, do let us know. Like Giant and Daryl, Kathleen, we have a few folks from the Microsoft side who can help you on the chat as well. So yeah, we are going to use this interface for the next 40 minutes or maybe less than 40 minutes that we have. Let me go back to my slide here, and I wanted to make sure we cover everybody is in there. So let's talk about the last bit of it, which is having the right ingredients for a prompt. So GCSE, that's how I remember it. Goal, context, source, and expectations are key elements like Giant covered. And we saw the do's and don'ts list, and that's something that is good to have. I used to have my desktop had GCSE as its background for a short while I was getting used to, setting that up. That being said, doesn't mean Copilot or any of the AI site cannot work for you. So again, it's just, cannot work with all these elements, but that is just a great way of time saver when you want to come up with prompts. Okay, so I think Sheila, you did mention you are facing some issues with that link. So maybe if somebody can just give a link to the consumer Copilot URL, maybe that works, Sheila, we can check that. Or we could try another URL as well. And yeah, we could probably work with you on that. But yeah, if there's anybody else in the same boat, please do share. I wanted to call out some of the additional best practices when we are talking about a new topic. Let's say you're asking Copilot or any of AI systems about using, about nurse sensitive indicators, happy, hospital acquired pressure, injuries, and things like that. And suddenly you decide, okay, I need to plan my vacation for maybe the Thanksgiving weekend. You don't want to use the same topic, what you've been chatting with Copilot. You start fresh, start a new conversation. And I'm going to quickly show you that if folks have not done that. And always make sure the responses that generative AI produces are correct. That's why we rely a lot on citations. Responses have citations to it. So once you have those citations, you know where it's being sourced, where those responses are coming in, because the moment you consume that response, then you are the owner of that response. So always verify Copilot's responses, start fresh. And if you want to emphasize, just like the air quotes that we are all used to, use quotation marks when in your prompts. So you can emphasize a certain thing. Maybe it could be a style of writing, or maybe it's a key aspect of the conversation that you want to give that emphasis on. Also, no, Copilot has its limitation. It's Copilot and not autopilot for a reason. Cannot do everything under the sun, but it's meant to be your personal assistant to help you with your day-to-day tasks, or things that you spend a lot of time doing, so that you can spend your time judiciously on, or maybe on more tasks that are more innovative and of your liking. So Again, not everything can be done with Copilot or AI at this point, and that is something we all need to be aware of when we look out, think about solutions and things in the AI space as well. So, without next poll that I wanted to run is design thinking, and we're going to use Copilot prompting for this design on the design thinking concepts that were shared. Anybody? I think we have close to 24, 25 people on this call. If you have attended the design thinking session, can you give a quick reaction? The one that was happening last week, or the one that is yeah, you've attended any of the variations of it. Awesome, perfect. Okay, so that's most of the folks on the call today. So as you know, there are 5 stages to design thinking, and healthcare. Why is it significant to healthcare? Is because healthcare problems are often complex and systematic. So traditionally, it's been focused from an individual needs lens, but modern healthcare requires a humanity-centered approach, which considers long-term effects on communities and systems. So design thinking helps teams to deeply understand the stakeholder needs. And the stakeholder could be a patient, could be the family of a patient, the staff, the frontline workers, clinicians that work with it. So we need to it understands the stakeholder needs to generate a creative solution and rapidly test improvements. So this leads to a solution that is not really desirable, like meeting certain needs, but also feasible and viable within our healthcare context. So in practice, embracing design thinking in nursing can lead to higher patient satisfaction, streamlined processes, and empowered clinical teams. And I think that is what we saw on the last week's session. So how we have the different phases. We have phase 1, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And by following these phases, nurse leaders can tackle challenges methodically while keeping end users, which are the patients and the frontline workers, at the center of it. This approach has proven results. In fact, design thinking has even catalyzed massive growth of healthcare innovations that is desirable for both the users and feasible to implement. It sparks creativity while reducing the risk because ideas are tested and refined. It's not a one-time process. It is a continuous process where there is testing and refinement happening. And think of it as learning by doing. That's the concept that we fix on. And another thing to note is design thinking begins and ends with empathy. And I think that is a key area where all the leaders in this call shine on. As we'll see, this aligns perfectly with the nursing values. So we start by understanding people's need and end with solutions that genuinely improve their lives. So this is the human-centric mindset and why design thinking has been embraced in the nursing innovation program across the country and all across the world today. Okay, so we know these 5 phases of design thinking. And now we're going to get into the hands-on part of design thinking, where we're going to come up with prompts for each of these phases. But let me give you a little more structure around what we have in plan for you. So this is called the hands-on prompting challenge. And this is the rules of engagement for the next 20 minutes. So everybody, please pick a scenario that you are passionate about. It could be anything, and create prompts for each of the phases of design thinking on this particular scenario. And once you've created those prompts for, emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and testing, share them with the team so it can, so we can actually work together on it. So let's get started with doing that. And I'm going to give a quick demo of what that looks like. And at the end of it, when you've done this testing on your own from one of the environments that we just talked about, or that we're sharing the URLs to, we kind of want you to fill a template like this. And I'm going to put all this in the chat so you don't have to take screen grabs or anything here, screenshots. I'm going to put that for you. You're going to put in your scenario title. You'll start with your scenario title. So maybe in a sensitive indicators and put in the hashtag for each of the phases. And then you're going to write here all your prompts that you use for the emphasize phase. Then for define, similarly for ideate, prototype, and test. And you're going to put that all into your Teams chat and just share that. So the end result will look something like this. So as you can see, this is the scenario I picked, nurse sensitive indicators, and these are the prompts that I used for this particular, to implement the design thinking strategy or the design thinking stages for my use case. Now, I know this could be new for some people, I just came up with all these things. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you how we can interact with Copilot. And doesn't have to be Copilot, M365 Copilot. It could be any, like for folks, if you're using the consumer one, that works as well. But we kind of want to use we get comfortable using generative AI first. And then once we get comfortable with generative AI, we'll get into this phase of running with different scenarios. Let me just quickly share my screen and then maybe we'll pause for any questions. But meanwhile, are folks still having issues accessing? Okay,
It
I
looks
think
like
that
a few are blocked. Maria.
okay. Yeah, maybe you could try any other generative AI applications, or I'll be sharing my screen. Feel free to follow along there as well. And maybe you guys can tell me a scenario and I could, we could use that for folks who've been blocked. But for others, please do feel free to pick a scenario that you like patient experience, nurse sensitive indicators, nurse engagement, and then we'll apply the concepts. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me know once you guys can see my screen. Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. So I'm guessing most of you can. So yeah, this is the link that we shared. If you are unable to get there, totally understand. It's yeah, don't worry, we'll follow along with us. I know Giant also shared a bunch of other links which could be an alternate. If all of them are blocked for you, don't worry, we can use my screen. Sharing is caring, so I'm going to share my screen and have you guys share your prompts in here so we can do it together. But once you get into this UI, you can see, does anybody see this try GPT-5 like on the top right hand corner? Anybody see that? Okay, great. So Nico, yep. Anybody else? Angie, yes, a couple of you guys. So this is brand new. I want to say just 2 weeks. We're coming 2 weeks when we released it. So for folks who have access to it, try this. My new favorite one, it just gives you access to a newer model, GPT-5, within the Copilot stack. I mean, AI is kind of like innovation is at such a fast pace. Every day you wake up, there is probably a new model or something new to look forward to. And this is the latest buzzword and something that has worked out. I've had great luck as well. But if you go in here, as you can see, this is a prompt box. You might see a history of your prompts. I love this dictation. I use this on my phone. And I think when folks, clinicians also rely a lot on dictation because you guys are always on the move. So if you don't want to write, you can talk to Copilot and dictate to Copilot your prompt. But this is the area where your prompt, all your AI prompting concepts is going to come alive. So if you had, let's say in this case, I think I remember a question from one of the attendees of the previous session that we could probably maybe use in our, use to show it. But let's get started with the whole pitchathon. You could be a leader and you've heard so much about, the pitchathon NurseHack4Health, the pitchathon as part of the program. And there are so many things happening around you. How about using generative AI to get you started on building that pitchathon? So I have a prompt that I have pre-written, but I'm going to share that in here as well. This will give me access to, or give me ideas on a potential pitch ideas that I for these specific teams. And I am focused on building a thriving workforce, fostering healthier work environment with improved patient care as the main objective. So these are the key elements that I want to pitch on, and let's see what generative AI has to offer. Like I said, always validate the response that you get from Copilot. Now, once you get the response, if you're using it, it is your own IP. So this is a great place to start if you just are, confused, where do I begin? So this gives you a great starting point. It gives you an idea. So this could be a pitch concept, why it works. It gave me 3 because I specifically asked for 3 potential pitch ideas, and these are the 3 that it gave me. So let me just go down. Yes, peer power and care culture. I love the titles, the creative part of it that comes in too. Now, let's say you like one of these ideas, you can ask it to expand on wellness first staffing ideas or add patient care impact metrics and whatnot. So you continue the conversation with Copilot this way. Now, let's say you like this prompt a lot, and you don't want to remember it. I mean, I copy this prompt and put it in my Word in the past, but let's say each time you go to Copilot, you might want to reuse this prompt. So you do have the option to save a prompt. So if you click on it, you can save a prompt. And this is I'm going to give it a title called my pitch prompt. And now the next time I want to think, about creating a pitch, I can use this. This gets stored in something called the Copilot prompt gallery. So every time you can go ahead and use this prompt in your, whenever you need a similar scenario. Now you could access it from there, or you see this view prompts, the symbol at the top of the prompt box there. If you click on it, it'll give you access to prompt gallery, which has a collection of a lot of prompts. So if you are still learning to prompt and still, learning how the best practices around prompting, you can look into some of those suggested prompts. They are divided by task, by job type, by industry, or if you've already created a prompt, that is really great. You can choose your prompt section in here. And if you've already saved it, that prompt would appear on this side, on this section. So this is how you save prompts. And I love the fact that we can save prompts because, like we talked about the 4 elements, it's not very common that we always, whenever we interact with AI, we have all those 4 elements in play. So always a great place to save some prompts so that where you've applied those principles and those can be reused. One more thing that I've learned with prompting, when I've given a prompt, I haven't gotten the right response. And maybe it's after 6 times of going back and forth, chatting with Copilot, I get my, what my desired response is. Then I ask Copilot, what would have been a great prompt that I could have started off from at the beginning? So use this concept. And once I get that great prompt from Copilot, I end up saving that prompt. But saving a prompt is a lifesaver in terms of it actually saves time when you are, when there are some repetitive tasks or trends that you have. Okay, so we talked about this. This is just how you can interact, saving prompts, talking to Copilot. Try GPT-5. Now, if you have GPT-5 on, you're using a more updated model, a more powerful model. It does have some greater powers to it in terms of, making sure it has the right skill set for a deep research scenario versus maybe just general analytics one and things like that. So if you do see it, try it and let us know when we go in with the hands-on section what the different responses are. But yeah, once you have that, like I said, you click on this one here, the blue symbol right on top of here. This is where you start a new conversation. So we talked about if you are asking about happy and getting, what are some ways you can provide happy and all those things, and suddenly you want to plan your vacation, go ahead, click on this icon here, start a new chat. So it's a new thread altogether. So yep, that is a quick overview of Copilot Chat. Any questions from the team so far? And we do acknowledge folks who are not able to join. Hopefully, like me sharing my screen would be a good example. And I think Nico has also offered if you have any scenarios you want to run by.
I know we've done this exercise, Maria, with many organizations, including out of the country, and I don't recall the blockage being an issue. So I wonder if that's something that we may see coming up. Nico did mention in the chat potentially joining via your phone and potentially using your personal email if you would like to do that. The purpose of the session today is to really get you a great tool that you can utilize as you're walking through the application process for the Nurse Hack for Health. Olga has a question.
So that's a great question, Olga. So whenever you see this green symbol here, it is protected by enterprise data protection, and Microsoft doesn't use anything to train your models. So if you're logged in with your office, with your organization's credentials to the free version of Copilot Chat, we do not train any of our models with your data. That's the part. So we always say no shield, no deal. So make sure you have that shield up there to make it a secure approach. And like that's kind of why I started. We want to use Copilot Chat so that we don't use any. Nobody's using your data for any training, and there is all the security and compliance, privacy policies being applied, and Microsoft does have a strong responsible AI principle also in place. Okay. So if there are no questions, let's get started. I'm going to paste a few things. So any topics that you guys want to focus on? So for today's demo, I'm going to be focusing on nurse sensitive indicator, and this is a prompt that I would use to come up with building the final template, and I'm going to share what we want in the final template as well. But for folks who are not able to access Copilot Chat, like in this case, I use nurse sensitive indicators. Any other themes that you guys want to use? And I just pinned to this chat the template that I love if you guys can also share, picking up that scenario. I just noticed I spelled scenario wrong. The OCD in me just doesn't let that go, so I'm going to correct that soon. But yes, so give a title scenario, give prompts under each of those sections, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, and then put that in here. So I'll get started here. So if there's any takers, anything else, patient care, could be nurse engagement, nurse onboarding, retention, burnout, any other topics you guys want me to create this for, or we can go ahead with the nurse sensitive indicators, NSIs. Okay, so we'll go with NSIs in that case. So I am a nurse leader. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lily. Okay, so nurse leader, passionate about nurse sensitive indicators. I've been tasked to create prompts for the 5 stages of design thinking. I specified the 5 stages. Help me create prompts for each phases of design thinking. So let's go in and let's see what prompt comes up with. And others can replace this piece instead of nurse sensitive indicators to whatever they like when they have access. For folks who have access to Copilot, could be patient engagement, or could be onboarding clinicians and things like that. So yeah, so it came up with some prompts for me for each of these phases. Prompt 1, emphasize, stage 1, emphasize the prompt, talk to frontline workers, and these are the different prompts that I can do. Now I got a skeletal thing, like ideally if it was just, as far as the task is concerned, just copy paste, put it into that and you're done. But honestly, the real effectiveness of this approach would be when you start delving into each of these phases. So I want to make sure, although we have this saved, and I'm going to put that in the chat here as well, we are going to use each of these prompts for each of these stages and come up with follow-up prompts to build a story around NSIs using the design thinking concepts. So let's get started with the first, the emphasize one. So here it says talk to, so let's just put this in. Let's see what Copilot says. I'm going to put that in. And you can see it comes up with some follow-up prompts. Let's say you wanted to create a deck, slide deck with these prompts. You have those in here. Or if you want to tailor these just for patient falls, it gives you with follow-up prompts. So if you want, you can go down that path. But I'm going to try these prompts of each of these phases and see what could be some follow-up actions that can come from it. This is already a strong start on the emphasize phase. So this can be refined this way. Follow-up questions to guide the conversation. What are the good words? It was a good day, bad day in the look like for nurses in terms of NSIs? Where do nurses feel unsupported or heard? And maybe as part of it, I want to create, I think it's a good idea, create a worksheet for the emphasize phase. So I go ahead and use this out of the box prompt, create a worksheet, and it's going to generate what would be a good way for me to understand or map that emphasize phase. So it's analyzing. Let's see what it comes up with. Next time we could use maybe try GPT-5 and get started. But as you see, this is all part of the same conversation because it's all tied to that same topic that I'm interacting with Copilot, and that's kind of where we're going in. So there we go. It created it. It's a professional section. You can print it, use it digitally for your team huddles. So it actually generated a PDF file for me, which I can download. And there you go, design thinking worksheet, emphasize. So if you were doing this, if you were working on it real time, go ahead and use this worksheet. Share this with your users, who you are, who you're going to work towards, the interviews. These are things you can take note on. So right from the beginning, Copilot let you come up with the questions, come up with the concept, even generated a worksheet for you. So now under my emphasize section, I would have this prompt as well as create prompt worksheet, create from a worksheet tagged along on the emphasize section of this particular scenario. And while we wait for that, I kind of want to, I know we did quickly talk about this slide. Sorry, my bad. I'll open that in a short while. A slide which had an example with everything filled out. If you want to use that, but otherwise you can use, like I've pinned it to the chat, use that template to fill that up. So now I feel I'm good about emphasize. Maybe any tips for conducting interviews, maybe I can include that as well. And Copilot's going to give me interview tips. But like I said, each response it gives, please make sure you're searching, you're looking at, or you are, looking at the responses and vetting the Copilot response that you got before you consume them in your project. Okay, so now it's going to give me tips on how to do it. So ask open-ended questions, practice active listening, pay attention to emotional cues, take notes with permission, or record with permission, create a safe and respectful space for honest sharing. So these are some of the tips that we can use for a good, healthy interview experience. So I think we are good. Now let's go back to our second prompt, which was there for the define phase. So based on what you've heard, what specific problems related to? So I'm going to use that from our chat, which I shared, and I'm going to put that in here. Let's see. It's going to give us that definition, problem statement that we want. So for nurse leaders, what we've heard, examples could be this. So here, if you can see, you're moving from understanding experience to clearly identifying the problem. So these are some of the worksheet sections, but let's see, I want to create, start afresh on the design principle, define phase. If that's the case, you can go ahead and create a new chat in here and start off with, based on what you've heard, what are the specific risk indicators, and you can give that context. I am building this for the define phase of design thinking for NSIs. So now starting fresh, I had like a whole thread going on the emphasize phase. We had a couple of prompts. We went into interviews, how you can build, created a worksheet. So now we are building for the define phase. So that's kind of why I gave in that additional context of what it is, and it does understand NSI. So it did pick that sensitive indicators and this. So here's a well-framed problem statement that it came up with. Now let's say you want to reframe for pressure injuries, happy. So you can go ahead and do that. Or let's say you want to look into explore solution for infection rates. So that's something that you can, look into or create a greater definition focusing on that aspect of NSIs. So go ahead and use it. So like it says here, how might we reduce associated infections? These are some of those terms or some of those the statements that it's come up with, which you can leverage in your particular scenario too. Anybody else have tried any other scenarios so far other than NSIs? Or awesome, Susan. Again, don't want to. If you would you be open to sharing what is the scenario that you've been exploring?
Sure. Well, I've been exploring it for a while, and basically, I'm a primary care clinician, so part of it is trying to get people to give us information before they come in, so the better that we know them and have that discussion with them, the better. So I'm looking at using ambient listening tools to actually collect data from patients and be able to codify it so it's easier for the clinicians to understand it, that we can really basically use natural language processing to understand what the patient said and to understand basically how we can best help them without going for weeks and weeks before we figure out what their problem is and medications and that sort of thing. So I ran one, and I like the 5. Kathleen or Cecilia, and I like the 5 a lot better. I've been using ChatGPT 4.5, and this is the first time I've run this. It looks really good. So basically, what I did is I ran a scenario with it, but then I said to them, then give me the stages of then looking at what we're supposed to do in terms of looking at the design thinking, and it came up with a whole different scenario and ways to do that things. I had to keep going back and saying to them, no, I don't want paper. I want to make this a listening kind of thing. So I had to keep redirecting it a couple of times, but it did work pretty nicely. So it's good. It's very complex, and so, but the tool worked very well. So thank you very much for introducing this to us today.
Thank you, Susan. I love that use case. I mean, I wish all our clinicians did that more as a patient. So I love that use case. And the fact that you've been using technology to do that, that's really good to know.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Yes, the idea is, I think that's the step one. I mean, this is not your day job, saving lives is. So I know implement. So I always say that, like, you shouldn't look at using AI, like just look for a scenario to use AI, but AI should be used for something that helps you day in, day out. So I love that use case. And do share if you did get any responses from there I know ambient listening or for patient care. Do put that in here, preparing for patients. So do put that in the chat so maybe others can learn as well. But thank you.
It's very long. I don't know if you want it all.
Oh, I think, that's true. Maybe, I mean, you could give it a shot. You never know. I mean, I've actually read through some very long ones because some of the scenarios were so useful and so impactful that we want to share it with other customers that we interact with as well, right? So people start thinking it the right way. Like, I know the greatest point is like, where do I use AI is sometimes the biggest challenge we face with many customers, many of our clinicians. So giving them ideas is pretty critical. So even if it's long, do
one
share.
question I did want to ask you, when you get down to a certain point, these days most of the systems are giving us 2 choices, and it says, which one of these do you like better? And I never really know how to go after that, because both of them look good for various reasons. And so do you know what I'm talking about? You're getting 2 choices because it says it basically is using it as a learning tool for the system. How do you address that?
Yep. So I think sometimes, at least some of the researcher, I don't know, you mentioned you've been using ChatGPT also. So I'm guessing, have you used like researcher and deep research kind of a scenario where it does also, it gives you an option. Would you like for me to do it this way versus that way? I think it comes to the same thing, asking a colleague, and somebody comes back to you and asking, okay, do you want me to create a 10-page document versus a 2-page versus just one table with it. So based on the audience that you are, if it's for yourself, you might have better clarity. But if it's for a bigger project, I usually look at, okay, what is the possible audience for this data? And then what would they resonate more with? So if it's leadership, I would say, okay, I just need that table with all these components in one table, and that's quick to read, easy consume. But if it's, let's say, researchers who are like maybe PhD grads who are actually learners, educators, they would like more detailed explanation. So I would go in with a 5-page thing. So I use the concept of who the audience could be as a criteria on going down one path versus the other.
Thank you.
Yep, great question. So yeah, I think we went ahead. Yes. So going back to this example, we went ahead, you got your problem statement, that is phase 2, and more. And next is the ideate phase. So let me, ask Mitch ideas to help solve this. So let's go ahead and click on the ideate one, and I'm going to start a new one here again. Let's go in. I'm going to paste this so you guys can also follow along. It's in the same prompts that I shared just at the beginning, whatever comes under ideate, and it's going to give me responses, and we can have that conversation, brainstorm ideas, and let's see what Copilot comes up with, maybe alternate options we could do. So let's see. So if you notice something here, and NSIs here, it picked up as needle stick injury. So a little focused again. So here it went into that, and it talked specific to those rather than covering all nurse sensitive indicators. So this could be one place. Now I know my prompt can be, maybe I want to change it. I want to specify, instead of using those short forms, I'd use the same prompt where I expand on what NSI, which could improve nurse sensitive injury. Of sensitive indicator. Okay, so I gave that wrong. But anyway, let's see. Let's look injury outcomes, and it gives you more technology ideas. So what can be done for it? Smart beds, wearable sensors, AI-powered dashboard. And you might want to know what is already in the market in this scenario, in this location. You don't have to create something always. So maybe give me what are some of the popular smart bed options today. Give me a list of brands specializing in it. Excuse my spelling, but I think Copilot's smart enough to figure that out. But yeah, so now I'm having a conversation tying just to that ideate phase. I'm asking follow-up questions so I can come up with a great solution around it. And I would group all the prompts that I've done so far in this instance of the chat on ideate. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish that. And while it does that, the last section, which we talked about more with respect to, let me quickly make sure I have that, prototype. And we can use for testing. So some of it might require a big configuration, but let's go ahead and do that as well. We'll wait for it to come. So I'm waiting for the response to come in. Otherwise, we could put in our next prompt. Any other questions? Anything that? Okay, so you can see the response. These are some of the top smart bed brands in healthcare. And you can see right at the bottom, it gives you the URL from which it pulled up these responses. So if you wanted to look, verify if these responses are from, from the right sources, as part of your goal. So as part of your prompting, you can go ahead and specify if you wanted it only from, let's say, iot4healthcare.com, you could specify that in the prompt as well. Now, that is about ideate. Now, the second last prompt phase, which is prototype. So let's pick that up. So pick 1 or 2 promising ideas to build simple version of nurse sensitive oops, yep, injury solutions for the prototype phase within design thinking. In design thinking concepts. So we could go ahead and build that. And finally, the last one is about testing. So it's going to give you, and I'm going to club that in here itself. So where we try out your prototype with a small group of patients, and going to give you challenges on that as well. So yep, it's thinking. I think I've had, okay, yes, there we go. So create idea 1, smart rounding checklist. 2 is visual communication tool. And it also gives some explanation on, what you can do, what is a prototype version in action, and why these work for prototyping. So you can, again, create that mock-up, design a magnet system, or, sometimes like I've had create images for the same as well. And the last but not the least, try out the prototype with the score, what works, what doesn't work, and gather feedback. So it can get me some examples of the feedback, feedback gathering mechanism. So that's a combination of prompts. And I think Susan shared one, which has worked, and I'm pretty sure we have others also who've been following along. Feel free to share them. I know it's a long prompt, but again, we could all, sharing is caring, and use some concepts of this within our end. So thank you, everybody. And we do have a last prompt. If you guys want to try, put that in the chat. But yeah, that's a quick overview of using AI prompting. I hope you learned 1 or 2 concepts that you can use in your day-to-day. So over to you, Nico.
Thank you so much, Maria. Nico? There looks
Yeah,
like
that was incredible.
Looks like Lorraine
Yes,
has a
thank
question.
you.
I saw a hand up. Let me just see.
Yeah, sure. Let's take questions.
Lorraine, did you have a question? I saw a hand up. I thought, I don't see it any longer, Nico.
Yeah, it could be reactions, raise
It could have
hand.
been a
Yes, I do
reaction.
that. Yeah.
Okay, for sure. Just want to thank you, Maria, Giant, Vasu, and the team, Daryl and Kathleen, for the support in today's session. This was incredible. Thank you for bringing generative AI to life for everyone to support the NurseHack4Health Pitchathon events. With the last couple of minutes, I just wanted to state that our next upcoming event, which will be AI Solutions, also led by the incredible Microsoft team, will take place September 8th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you haven't already registered, please make sure that you visit the NurseHack4Health schedule page. I'll drop that link in the chat now for you to all have access. Again, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded to the NurseHack4Health website as well. So you, at any point in time, you can review that the video. And once we receive also the deck with those prompts, we'll be able to also add that as an additional resource.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you all.
Thank you all.
Take care.